Well, that definitely wasn't the result that we wanted in week 1 against the Minnesota Vikings, but Bears fans, I told you so. And today's episode of Keek on the Mic starts right now.
Cali the shot town is Bears on the flight. Let me go tune in to Keek on the mic. He gon' make sure we get our news and highlights. When you get on YouTube, you better hit the like.
Hey, what's going on, Bears fans? Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Keek on the Mic, the podcast all about the Chicago Bears. As always, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. First and foremost, Bears fans, I hope you guys are having hopefully a good Tuesday, even though a lot of Bears fans, including myself, are down in the dumps after a very frustrating fourth quarter and performance from the Chicago Bears. It all started off fine and dandy. It seemed like the Chicago Bears dominated most of the game, at one point up by 11 points going into the fourth quarter. But then, things took a turn for the worse and they fell to the Vikings on Monday Night Football in week 1 by a score of 27-24. And I know there's a lot of you guys probably saying, well, Keek, why did you tell us at the beginning of today's episode, I told you so? And I will get to that reason later on in the show. But first and foremost, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this game. But I also want to hear from you guys and let me know how you guys are feeling down below in the comment section. For me, Bears fans, I am very frustrated. Just like the rest of you guys, I'm also looking for answers of what truly went wrong. It seemed like the Chicago Bears were absolutely shutting down J.J. McCarthy and the Minnesota Vikings offense. It definitely had him flustered. Deshaun Wright had a pick six. It seems like, even Dio Dangbo had a really good day. Javon Dexter had a really good day, despite the losses of, not Jalen Johnson out there or Kyler Gordon and TJ Edwards. It seemed like it was going well, even to start the game for Caleb Williams. It looked like he was in rhythm. Led a touchdown drive. It was a perfect start for the Chicago Bears. Once again, up 17-6 going into quarter number 4. But that's when things took a turn for the worse. First and foremost, I do want to address a couple of the penalties that were called by the referees in last night's loss against the Minnesota Vikings. First and foremost, I want you guys to explain to me how that was a hold on Darnell Wright. If that's how the season's going to go in regard to the officiating, we're in for a long season, not just for the Chicago Bears, but just the state of the referees in the National Football League as well. That was one of those calls to me that didn't lose the Chicago Bears the football game, but definitely changed the momentum of that game last night, right? Of course, the Bears, I believe, had a 1st and 10 at the Minnesota Vikings 24-yard line. They called that holding call on Darnell Wright. It pushed us back, and then one thing led to another. Obviously, Cairo Santos missed that 50-yard field goal that also changed the momentum of that game, would have put the Bears up 20-6, and the rest is history. Obviously, now when J.J. McCarthy and the Vikings get the football back, there was definitely another call that was questionable on Tyreek Stevenson, where it was called a pass interference. But when you watch the replay, the guy slipped, and of course, there may have been a little contact from Tyreek Stevenson, but the guy at the end of the day slipped. They get the call, and that was definitely one of those calls that definitely changed the momentum of the game, because the very next play, J.J. McCarthy throws a touchdown pass to shrinking that lead. But overall, just a very frustrating way to close out that football game, especially when the win was one quarter away. And by no means, Caleb Williams started good, but then as an offense, and definitely for Caleb Williams, definitely played very stagnant. There was really no rhythm. I do believe that, Ben Johnson overall called a very good game, but there was definitely things that, really frustrated me about Caleb Williams, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. A big part of the game, right? Once again, going to the referees, didn't lose us the game, but definitely changed the momentum of that game. When you look at the Chicago Bears, when we talk about, really hurting themselves, and that's the one thing I want to mention on today's episode of Keek on the Mic, that we did not lose to the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings did not beat the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears beat themselves last night. First and foremost, 12 penalties for 127 yards. That obviously cannot happen if you want to win football games. Obviously Ben Johnson alluded to that fact after last night's game, but 12 penalties for 127 yards. When you look at the stats, Caleb Williams, 21 for 35, 210 yards, 1 passing touchdown, also added 6 rushes for 58 yards and a rushing touchdown. DJ Moore, 3 catches for 68 yards. OZ had 4 for 42. Roma Dunze, 6 for 37 for 1 touchdown. And this is where it gets frustrating, right? You look at Cole Kmet and Colston Loveland, right? 1 catch for 31 yards for Cole Kmet, and obviously 2 catches for 12 yards for Colston Loveland. I believe we all know that Ben Johnson understands that he needs to get these guys more involved in these later games. But I feel like that was one of the frustrating aspects of this game, is the tight ends not really having involvement in this game against the Vikings. And then, of course, it seemed that, DeAndre Swift was having a rhythm, and then Ben Johnson kind of went away from that. So that was definitely a frustrating part. But let's go ahead and switch really quick to the defensive side of the ball, because once again, the defense looked better than expected. Once again, Deshaun Wright had a pick 6. It looked like they had JJ McCarthy flustered, and he didn't know where to go. And then the fourth quarter happened. Despite the offense stagnant play where they kept going 3 and out. I believe that Caleb Williams in offense went 3 and out, 6 straight times. So obviously the defense had to keep going out there and try to muster out some stops. In the fourth quarter, especially, the Minnesota Vikings got the run game going with Aaron Jones and especially Jordan Mason. Definitely allowed JJ McCarthy to settle down a little bit and play with some more confidence. But when you look at JJ McCarthy, 13 for 20, 143 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 1 interception. Also had a rushing touchdown as well. When I mentioned that Jordan Mason kind of heated up in that fourth quarter, 15 carries for 68 yards. But just really looking at the scorecard, right? You talk about how we shut down the Minnesota Vikings all game long. They scored 6 points in the second quarter, but held them scoreless in the first and third quarters. But then the fourth quarter gave up 21 unanswered points. No matter how tired you are, even if the offense is kind of, not doing you any favors, you can't give up 21 unanswered points, right? But for the most part, I do feel like the defense did a pretty good job for most of the game, but just have to finish strong there and try to finish the game out. But once again, we need to look at how the offense played as well. So now going back to the offense and just looking at Caleb Williams once again. We're going to take it step by step with Caleb Williams. There was a lot of good moments, but there's also a lot of bad moments from Caleb Williams as well. A couple of throws that really bother me that I wish that he had back. And, we've talked about, the accuracy issues, maybe holding on to the ball a little bit too long for Caleb Williams. And when we're talking about holding on to the ball too long, you kind of live and die with those moments when you're talking about Caleb Williams, because there's moments where, for example, in the first drive of the game, he's able to, do what he does, play that Superman type of football, rolls out to his right and throws an absolute dot to Roma Dunze. And that's the good Caleb Williams. But then you have moments where he does the same thing and it doesn't look as good. So that's why I say live and die with those moments. But then there's just those routine throws where DJ Moore was open on the seam and he just simply misses them, overthrows them. And then there's, that hospital ball that he threw to DJ Moore where he almost got Moore murdered, right? So there's certain accuracy issues that Caleb Williams needs to fix. And it wasn't a perfect night. But I also feel like it could have been worse. And this is where, and the point of this podcast is where I say, I told you so. Right. I understand that we were all excited. I expected the Bears to win that football game. But at the same time, prior to the start of the NFL season, I said, yes, I have expectations for Caleb Williams, but do not expect the offense to go out there and showcase fireworks early on in the season. I even said that it could possibly take until after the bye week to see this offense to start clicking. You have to understand, we have a new head coach that is bringing in a new system. So Caleb Williams is learning new offense. You have a new offensive line. You have the pieces on the outside. So being selfish as Bears fans, we tend to get impatient, which rightfully so. We are tired of losing. We are tired of seeing the same old thing. We are tired of watching a quarterback struggle time and time again, year in and year out. And especially with the aspect of Caleb Williams being the #1 overall pick in the 2024 NFL draft, his expectations are a little bit higher than of a Justin Fields or even a Mitchell Trubisky or even a Jay Cutler because of what Ryan Poles put around him. And it seemed for the most part that Ben Johnson was calling the proper plays, but now Caleb Williams and the rest of the offense just needs to execute. But with that, it does come with time. And that's why I said before the season that even though it's exciting, and once again, I got caught into that trap as well, saying, oh, look at all the weapons we have. We have Colson Loveland, Cole Kmet, DeAndre Swift, DJ Moore, Roma Dunde. Oh, this is going to be fireworks. But at the same time, everything is still new. They are still trying to mesh together. So it may take until after the bye week on that Monday Night Football game against the Washington Commanders. So what I am trying to say is try to give Caleb Williams time. I know it may seem tough in this moment, but try to give him time. But at the same time, I understand we may not want to wait a whole year. But for me, the timeline, what I want to see is that after that bye week, and obviously that bye week comes early, week 5, I'm hoping that by week 6 on Monday Night Football against the Washington Commanders, things will start clicking for Caleb Williams. But he obviously has to be better. You have to make that throw to DJ Moore. That is an easy pitch and catch for most quarterbacks in the National Football League. If you cannot make that throw consistently, then yes, that is a problem. I am willing to live and die with the whole, Superman stuff where, he's moving around the pocket and rolling out to his right, rolling out to his left. I'm willing to live and die with that Caleb Williams. But at the end of the day, the easy pitch and catches like the one to DJ Moore, that needs to be corrected in a very quick and a hurry by Caleb Williams. So once again, not over here overly starting to panic about Caleb Williams, but at the same time, he does need to improve. He knows that. Ben Johnson needs to know that. Very unfortunate way to close out that game, especially when we are 1 quarter away from being 1-0. But now we have to rinse and repeat and get ready for a very tough game against the Detroit Lions in Detroit in probably a must-win game already for the Chicago Bears. You don't want to start out 0-2 to start your season, but you definitely don't want to start out 0-2 against division opponents. So it's going to be very interesting. Obviously, it's a homecoming for Ben Johnson. So hopefully he has these guys ready. I think he will have these guys ready, but at the end of the day, I hope Caleb Williams takes that next step and we can start seeing him hit these routine throws that should be easy. But once again, try not to panic. We all knew that at the end of the day, this was all new. He's learning a new offense. Let's try to give him a little bit more time before we start bailing on him. But once again, he definitely needs to improve on a couple of different things before he takes that next step as an NFL quarterback. So Bears fans, let me know down below in the comment section how you're feeling about that game last night, how you're feeling about Caleb Williams, how you're feeling about Ben Johnson. Let me know down below in the comment section. But as always, Bears fans, make sure you guys continue to hit that subscribe button and the notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Make sure you follow me on all my social media platforms and make sure you share this episode of Keek on the Mic with every single Bears fan that you know. But other than that, be back for our all new Bears podcast right here on Keek on the Mic. Thanks, guys. And as always, bear down.
You ain't bout it, you ain't Keek on the mic. You ain't bout it, you ain't Keek on the mic. You can go and subscribe cause I be on it right. You ain't bout it, you ain't Keek on the mic.